or moving to a new voting system, a new primary system, a new way of getting unaffiliated candidates who are conservative but could win, a whole new way of thinking. But we are still locked into this terrible, terrible broken system. So part of me thinks if I were in that central committee, sure, let's destroy the primary and let's just pull life support off of this already dead party.
I just can't imagine how it impacts all the other races. I guess I know, and that I'm talking about the local ones, state house, state senate, county commissioner.
Well, those are assemblies too. So since those don't go to the state one, they still go to the county assemblies.
But the primary part, if the primary is dead, do other Republicans get to vote on those races, or do they all get decided at their little assemblies?
They all get decided.
That applies to district attorney too. I mean, we will shrink down the number of people that will pick our nominees to a negligible reflection of the overall Republican Party. And frankly, Coloradans are going to later turn around and go, you know what, we didn't care about you before, but we'd love to have your support right now.
Right. And imagine how this was the thing about in the last election when Republicans got trounced and they were saying, oh, if only we had Tina Peters, if only we had Greg Lopez and Hank Brown or Ron Hanks. If you can't reach out and get those unaffiliateds in to vote for you in the primary, how in the world are you going to go get those people you've just disengaged? That you've said we don't want you in our caucus, we don't want you in our assemblies, we don't want you in our primaries, but now we want you in the general,
because they will be compelled to vote for people who stand up for what they believe in.
Right. No, it is suicide. And part of me says, let's do that now. Let's do that now, because in 2024 it's going to be a bad year anyway. So that in 2026, when it's going to be an important year, we have a whole new crew. We have a whole new system. And I could be completely wrong here, George. I could be completely wrong, but we are so broken. We have to do a complete 180. I want to throw it all out and rebuild. In capitalism, they call it creative destruction, rising from the ashes, circle of life, call it whatever you want, but the patient is dead. We've got to move on. And that's whether it's a slow death or a fast death,
it just has to be death.
The party is over. The party is over. Am I wrong on that one, do you think?
I think the way it is right now, that there's no chance we rebound. This feels like a decades-long build for us. That's just how it feels right now, given the makeup of the electorate. John, can I say this one? People don't know this. You did this at the last possible second because I was hosed by United Airlines at the last possible second last night. I can't thank you enough, man. It is great to have someone like you with your credentials and qualifications and access to a microphone to call on at the last possible second, man. You've been great.
I know what it's like when you're sitting at the airport and you're sitting, and the most frustrating part for me is the not knowing. When it's like, when they say, well, we're going to be out of the talk. Well, we think in 2 hours, but maybe 4. Maybe we're going to get you a hotel, but we don't know where the hotel is.
I've got such stories. I feel like the 9 o'clock hour could be my attempt to single-handedly take down United Airlines. I don't know yet. I mean, it's been.
I did the same thing with Frontier. Did you get a hotel?
Well, I did and I didn't. That's part of the story, and I wish I could go into the whole details here, but they were like, we can get you a hotel 10 miles from here.
Yeah, it's always 10 miles away.
And it's always says no shuttle service, and I know you're going to take the 5 a.m. flight on Southwest from Houston to Denver, which means you're going to sleep for 4 hours anyway, but good luck getting an Uber at 3 a.m. to get in here. Nonetheless, it's a long story. John, man, we got to cut away for a break so we can get our buddies on.
Hey, well, I'm leaving it to you. I'm out of here. Welcome home. We're glad to have you. I only scared away half of your audience.
Both of them, huh? Thank you.
Both of them. But outrageous. Your mom's still listening.
From heaven.
From heaven. Hey, thank you so much, thanks, George. Man. George Brauchler's here. It's safe to listen again. George, thanks.
John Caldera, the best in this price range. Thank you for joining us, buddy. And we will talk with you soon. Listen, we're going to cut away for a break. We're going to come back and get made smarter by our buddy Amy from Alpine. Maybe she knows how United stock is doing today. It's George Brauchler on the George Show, back in the saddle, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, right back in the saddle in Denver, 710 KNUS, going right to the VIP line for the VIPest of them all. It's Amy Duncan from Alpine Planning. I think. Amy? Maybe it's the VIP part. Amy Duncan, Alpine? Normally, I think you're here, and I pressed the button. Hold on. Has United Airlines taken over the phones? Because this is exactly what I would expect. Should I press the button again? Amy, are you there? Sweet mother of goodness,
Sorry,
Amy, I'm so sorry. I thought either you were choking on an early morning breakfast chicken wing or we had disconnected you.
Neither, but I am ready to give you your report on United Airlines,
God.
And I apologize, sir.
No, you talk about anything you want, but in your 3 minutes, if you throw a couple seconds to United, I'd love it.
George, welcome home, sir.
Thank you.
You're a valiant trooper, and
well,
I look forward to hearing more about the more about the trip. So,
well, you'll be disappointed, but okay.
All right. Well, we're starting off with green numbers. Currently, the Dow's up about 70 points. The S&P is positive. The NASDAQ is positive. This is coming off a nice gains last week, where we've got 3 straight weeks of gains for both the Dow and the S&P, but more importantly, 5 straight months of gains if the S&P closes up today, obviously today being July 31st. Month of July, the S&P is up 3%, the Dow's up 3.1%, the Nasdaq's up almost 4%. So this is a big deal to see these gains be sustained. Even, of course, as the Fed raised rates last week, George, you go back in time 60 days and still almost every soundbite and news headline was talking about recession fears. That's really abated.
So weird.
Markets are now very much so pricing in what economists refer to as a soft landing. In case anyone's tired of hearing that term, essentially kind of a loose economic term talking about, if an inflation busting slowdown, as we've called it, that doesn't completely sink the economy. So that's what's referred to as the soft landing. I tend to agree that we are going to have this soft landing, but the big key, the big wild card is whether or not companies continue to hold on to workers or lay them off, because what continues to drive this upward market trend is the U.S. consumer and our endless appetite for goods and services, and then also strong jobs reports. The jobs report will be released on Friday, and that'll be something important that Brian and Gabe and I are looking at. So I'll finish with a United soundbite for you, sir, and then let you go. I'm sure you need to take a breath. I had kind of a fun Monday parallel tied into this, but I'll save this for later this week or next week.
Good.
Yeah, but United Airlines trading in the mid 54 range. It is up 17% year to date.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. The 1 month and the 6 month aren't quite as exciting, but United Airlines actually has been a stock that we've kept our eye on this year. We've got quite a few retired United Airline flight attendants and now a United serviceman. So we bring over a lot of United Airlines stock at Alpine, whether we like it or not.
I don't want to hurt them, but I want to hurt United. No, I'm kidding. I want them to get better. I just want them to get better, for the love of God.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't win if you're in the airline industry these days. It's a tough one.
Amy, I want to get your story on this too in the future here, but Alpine Planning Group is a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to improving your long-term financial success investing. It's a matter of trust. They are prepared to earn yours. Call them today, 303-843-0918, 303-843-0918. Amy, thanks.
No, thank you, George. Take care.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
Coming up next from Complete Colorado, page 2, Sherrie Peif, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. It is halfway through the Monday show. It's the last day of July, if you can believe that. I can't. Back with you in the saddle, George Brauchler, after a harrowing experience, the trifecta of failures by United Airlines that I'll cover at some other point in the show. I don't want to waste any more time, though, because nice enough to stick around and join us for our regular chat about all the stuff the mainstream media just refuses to report on taking place in our community is our good friend, Sherrie Peif from Complete Colorado, page 2. Sherrie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm a bit sleep deprived, stressed, and very anti-United Airlines right now, despite the fact that my universe has been with them for 2 decades. But
which doesn't make me happy at all, because my universe has been with Southwest Airlines for 2 decades. And last night, for the first time in literally probably 30 years, I booked a flight on United. Oh my goodness.
Are you going anywhere near Houston? It turns out Houston is the black hole of all things.
Okay, no, we're headed to Mexico.
If you can fly over Texas, good luck to you. You can always sneak back in over the border, but if you're going to go there, fly over Texas.
Yeah,
but it has been a dumpster fire. And folks out there, I tweeted out some hate-filled stuff yesterday because, that's what Twitter's for. I mean, that's what X is for. And a couple people tried to defend United by how can you blame them for the weather? I'm like, none of this, not one bit of it was weather. It was all human error. And those humans were employed by the chuckleheads at United. And by the way, their customer service, if I hear one more person say that robotic sort of pro forma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so, please, I don't care if you're sorry. Please fix this mess.
Right.
Right.
No, I know. Don't you love it when customer service goes, I completely understand your frustrations right now. Well, I really don't care if you understand my frustrations.
Yeah.
I want the problem solved.
And you're like, by completely understand, you mean it's 8:30, all the food places in the airport are closed, and you are sitting somewhere in Concourse B making a call to some stranger. That kind of know what I'm going through. Yeah, I get it. I don't want to, this is going to end up devolving into let's take down United stock. And frankly, I don't want to, based off of what Amy had just said. But nonetheless, let's get to the good stuff. Sherrie, I've got a couple articles here that you and I have not talked about that are great things, but I don't want to keep you from letting us know about something that may be breaking soon or super secret that you want or anything like that.
No, nothing that's super secret or breaking. Or I'm working on a couple of stories. One has to do with the Denver House District 4 race, and the people that have thrown their their name into the hat for that. There was a story that broke last week about some of the candidates, and one of those candidates just happens to be a former state legislator that. Yeah, I'm not sure how she's throwing her name back into the ring, but Rochelle Galinda's trying to get back into the state house. So
wait a minute. Wasn't she the one? She left under a bit of a cloud, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. She left under a huge cloud. She resigned, and the reason she resigned is because she was undergoing a recall at the time, because 2 young girls had come forward and claimed that she had sexual relationships with them against their will while they were on her campaign staff. They accused her of feeding her alcohol and marijuana. She eventually ended up in court.
Did those get investigated, and was she charged? What happened?
They did. So she ended up in court over the alcohol and the marijuana, and she was found not guilty on those charges. For whatever reason, the Greeley Police Department never filed charges on the sexual misconduct claims, despite the fact that it was multiple women that came forward. And there was weird things in her court hearing. There was these little innuendos between her and her attorneys and the judge. When she would start testifying on things, she would get reminded not to go there because then something else could come up that had already been, told not to. So I don't know what happened, but she resigned under a huge cloud of controversy.
She's back.
She had a lot of campaign finance problems when she was with the Greeley City Council. She really irritated the people in House District 50 because she campaigned on this idea that she was pro oil and gas. She was never going to take it away. And then she turned around and voted for Senate Bill 181. And she was the prime sponsor on the Office of Just Transition for all of those in natural resources who lost their jobs. So
that transition. Got it.
Yeah. How she would be getting back into politics. I guess, this is a vacancy committee, so all eyes are going to be on the Denver vacancy committee to see if she ends up in that spot.
We're talking with Sherrie Peif from Complete Colorado, page 2. Something else you wrote about, I can't wait to see that story, by the way, is Arapahoe County, which is third largest county in the state of Colorado by population. It is, as you may know, Sherrie, the very first county ever in the state of Colorado. In fact, Denver was carved out of it back in the day. And it's also the largest part, about 2/3 of the 18th Judicial District. And those county commissioners, and that board's changed, by the way. It was always a 3-2 board while I was the DA, 3 Republicans to 2 Dems. It's now like 4-1 Dems to Republicans. Yeah. They're going to go to the voters with something.
Oh, yeah. They want to keep your TABOR refunds. There's only a handful of counties left in the state. And here's the irony in this one. There's only a handful of counties left in the state that have not de-TABOred, okay? And Arapahoe County is one of them. But the irony behind that is the counties that have not de-TABOred, it's like 51 out of 64 have de-TABOred. And by de-TABOred, I mean they can now keep your taxes. They don't have to give them back if they go, it's like TABOR never existed.
Right.
But of the counties that have not de-TABOred, you're talking some big counties. I mean, Jefferson County has not de-TABOred.
Huge.
El Paso County has not de-TABOred.
Hugest.
Weld County has not de-TABOred.
Big.
Arapahoe County has not de-TABOred. So we're not talking, I don't want people to come on and go, well, yeah, but the counties that haven't de-TABOred are these tiny little counties.
Yeah, it was
on the
Moffett
eastern
or
slope.
something,
But, yeah, but it's not. It's El Paso. It's Weld. It's Jefferson. It's Arapahoe. And the things that are pushing them toward that, we need to keep all your money, are things like, oh, by the way, we took our one-time grant money from COVID and we put it into solving the homeless problem. And now we need to keep doing it. And they've admitted that. I mean, they've admitted that they used one-time COVID money to start a homeless problem. A solution to the homeless problem. That's not what the TABOR money was for.
Nope.
You weren't supposed to take
COVID
one-time
money was supposed to be something else.
Yeah, and put it into new programs. So Arapahoe County got themselves into the problem. You got Weld County that has not de-TABOred, and they don't have a sales tax. Over the last 12 years, they have rebated $1 billion back to their taxpayers.
Wow.
They built a 26-mile highway, 4-lane highway with no stops, not a single stop, 65 miles an hour. It runs from US 34 in Greeley to I-76 in Denver. It's 28 miles of nonstop 65 miles an hour, 4 lanes. They built that for cash, $110 million. They just expanded their jail, $50 to $60 million cash.
Wow.
They have a fully funded pension system.
How'd they pull that off, Sherrie? How'd they pull that off?
Well, most of it is obviously oil and gas. Weld County is very rich in oil and gas. But if you talk to the commissioners that have sat in those seats for all those years, they have done, I think Scott James, current commissioner right now, said they do what they need to do, not what they want to do. They don't spend money on things that they
for
want.
Government. God, I love that for government.
They spend money on things that they need. And
Holy
so,
smokes.
Yes, they are very flush in oil and gas money. There is no doubt.
It would be worth finding out
not gonna be
from.
there forever.
It'd be worth finding out from Arapahoe County Sheriff Tyler Brown what impact, if any, there is on his operations. Because while I'm sure Tyler would like more funds to be more aggressive in certain areas, my guess is he's not going to come on and say, hey, we're not able to stop and fight crime effectively because we don't have an extra amount of money. But I'll tell you where this is going to show up, and nobody's going to look this far down the road. Arapahoe County is about to be peeled out of Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln in the 18th Judicial District. They're going to be a standalone judicial district starting in 2025, and that means they will rely entirely on the fundraising that they get, or the funding that they get from the Arapahoe County commissioners. Now, what has happened, what led to the dissolving of the 18th, was that it became pretty apparent that the majority of crime, way more than the percentage of money that was contributed by Arapahoe, was taking place in Arapahoe. And that meant Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln were subsidizing the office. And so Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln said, We think we can do a better job with our dollars. And now when this office divides, this is just very insider baseball. I just happen to be very sensitive to it. There are going to be a ton of prosecutors and support staff that have to make a decision about, do they want to stay in the game at all? And if so, which office do they want to be at? If Arapahoe County does not de-TABOR, my guess is they're going to say, my God, why am I going there? Why don't I go down to Douglas County where they're,
Right.
where they've got more funds, they spend them better, and I'm not going to feel so limited. So it
Well,
could
and
have
that's an
ramifications
interesting-
there.
Well, and that's an interesting inside baseball, George, and that's a great point. But that's inside baseball. That why doesn't Arapahoe County just say that? That's not what they're saying. They're not coming out and saying, listen, folks, we're going to have to fully fund our entire judicial system. We're not going to have the help of these 3 counties. We have to have money. If you want to get the crime off your streets and you want to clean up Aurora and you want to do this, we have to do this in order to pay that. No, instead they're saying we have to continue a homeless program. I mean, if they're going to de-TABOR, your inside baseball is a very good point, but they need to be, their marketing needs to change bad, because the marketing right now for it is just.
Well,
I mean,
that story about
a little bit about the sheriff's department, but nothing in depth. They don't really talk about needs.
The
They just talk
misspending
about,
of the COVID funds is ridiculous. Like, why would you want to give that person more money? You gave money to your drunk uncle to help buy a house, and he went out and spent it on a brand new car, and then is like, hey, I don't have any place to live. And you're like, okay. I mean, I've already given. Arapahoe County could put a specific measure on the ballot that would be like what Douglas County did about 20 years ago, which was a criminal justice focused sales tax, but they haven't done that either. I just think Arapahoe County is going to be in tough fiscal straits here moving forward. I don't know if this thing could pass or not, the de-Brucing or de-TABORing, but that is something. But by the way, along the lines of the crime thing, selfishly, I want to talk to you about your other awesome piece here that people can find on page 2 of Complete Colorado. And it has to do with something called Initiative 71, or at least that's what it's called right now. What is that?
So, yes, you know that one very well. That one is a Michael Fields, president of Advance Colorado, ballot initiative that is looking to be on the 2024 ballot, that would mandate that violent offenders serve a much larger percentage of their time before they're released back into the public. And, going back to, your closeness to this, obviously, there was a situation down there in Aurora where a guy was falsifying his identification and pretending to be an ICE agent and going into the homes of people and sexually assaulting their small children. You put him away for something like, I don't know, 30 years to life or something. I don't remember the exact thing, but he got out 8 or 9 years into his 30 years to life sentence, and then turned around and did it again.
In the exact same community, went right back to the candy store.
In the exact same community. Exactly. So he's going to these homes of these immigrants and people who really don't, they're scared. The minute anybody shows up on their door, claiming to be from ICE, they're going to freak out. And sexually assaulting their children in their home while they're still in their home. And having to only serve something like 40% of their time. So what this bill would do is it would take people like Kenneth Lee, and it would make them serve anywhere from 75 to 85% of their time, depending upon how many times they've been convicted, whatever. But at minimum, 75% of their time before they become eligible for parole, so that people aren't having to explain to the parents why a man just sexually assaulted their 7-year-old daughter while they were in the home, who should have been still in jail.
Yeah, he had, for those that didn't follow this, back in the day, he'd been doing it for a long time. We weren't able to find or track down this guy. He'd pretended to be an ICE doctor. And so he would go through the phone book and find the names of Southeast Asian, Vietnamese in particular, families. And he would go there, say that he was with the government and he needed to inspect the children and, frankly, some of the older women. And of course, they want to be good Americans. They want to be Americans. So they're like, yeah, come on in. And he would sexually assault them. And this happened repeatedly, probably more times than we ever identified. Sent this clown to prison for what we thought was going to be forever, but no less than, I think it was 27 years. And the parole board, and 21 matters, the parole board, which is filled with people appointed by Polis and Hickenlooper no longer has the best interests of the community at heart. They are looking to turn people out of prison. And so they cut this guy loose, saying that he was safe to be repatriated back to the candy store where he already started violating on these kids. So this time he shifted. And this time he worked on Hispanic kids. And he would show up at the homes of suspected or known immigrants, say he needed to inspect their children, and would do the exact same thing. Frankly, if there's a death penalty for non-homicide cases, it's for this guy right here. Meanwhile, the parole board sends him out as quickly as they can, saying that he's safe to be put back in the community. We can't trust the parole board because we can't trust the people that Polis has put on them, and we can't trust a prison system. I don't know if you know this, Sherrie. Outside of life without parole, nobody on the planet Earth can tell you the minimum sentence anyone will spend in prison when they're sent there. Nobody, because there's so many ins and out and loopholes. I asked the person, the time computation person from the Department of Corrections, handful of years ago when I was up at the DA conference, and I said, riddle me this. Does anybody know the minimum? And she said, no. And I thought, how in the world is that a system for justice? I mean, even the defendant should know what their minimum amount of time is. So what Initiative 71 says is, you're a violent criminal, screw you. You're going to do 85% of your time. Now, for some of us, it's like, why isn't it 100% of the time? There are reasons to build in some earned time and stuff like that. But right now, the legislature is working the opposite direction. Do you remember last year, they just passed a bill the governor signed that said, we'll take even more time off of your unknown sentence if you go get your GED or your college degree or a master's degree. Now, that may seem like a well-intentioned policy, but given all of the other gray area that's here, we're just turning people away. They get sentenced to prison. We march them down to DRDC. We check them out, and then we send them right back to a halfway house where they can continue to reoffend. It's a broken system.
Well, and if you think about it, even like with situations like what you said, 23 years to life, 27 years to life, that's okay. So 27 years to life, not 27 years, but we're going to let you out at 9 to life. 27 to life. So at what point do we adjust the system so that this wide variation of time can't be cut back even lower than what the minimum sentence is supposed to be? I mean, if the guy had served, I don't know how old he was at the time of his arrest, but let's say he was 30 and he got 25 years to life. That would mean 55 years old. If he served the full 25 years.
Oh, he was older than that, much older than that.
But so I'm using an example that if you send somebody to jail at 30 and they're supposed to serve 25 years to life, but you let them out in 9, now they're out at 39 instead of 55, when that's not even 40% of, when life for them could have been 50 years. At least if they had served 40% of the 50 years, they'd be in there longer than, you know what I'm trying to say?
I do. I want more scrutiny too of the parole decisions, because these folks don't know what they're doing. I want to know who's giving them direction, who's giving them guidance, what information is provided to them. Like, what we don't know is who's the clown show, quote unquote, expert who said that this Kenneth What's-His-Nuts was good to go in terms of being safe to be repatriated into the community. That person shouldn't be able to practice in the state of Colorado ever again.
Well, because it's almost like just a checklist. Like, okay, I'm on the parole board. Here's a checklist. Yep, the guy ate 3 square meals a day and didn't throw any food at the jailer.
Didn't shank his inmate buddy.
Yeah, and he went to church every Sunday like he was supposed to. So, okay, he's good to go. None of that means that he's good to go.
No.
The recidivism rate in the state of Colorado is unbelievable. And just letting somebody out because he meets a box, that he's able to check off a bunch of boxes because he happens to be good while he's in jail, doesn't mean he's ready to go back out into society.
I want to give him a chance to continue to be good. And it sounds like he thrives in jail. Let's just keep him in prison. Let's just keep him there to do this. Sherrie, there's so much more to this story. Part of it, and we have like only 30 seconds to tell the story, but this isn't the first time that Fields tried to get this thing on the ballot so you and I could vote for it.
Yeah, no, he actually tried in the 2022 election, and it went in late. So, of course, the title board is a bunch of people that are appointed by elected officials in the state of Colorado, and each office, certain offices get to appoint somebody. Of course, Attorney General in the state of Colorado, Phil Weiser, his appointment to the title board was able to quash it and say, no, we're not going to put that on the ballot. So he didn't get it on in 2022. And then he's actually already ran it through the title board once this year, and it was ready to go. But he wanted to go back and do some tweaking to the ballot language because they didn't like the way it came out of title board. So it's already been to the Supreme Court because, of course, the Democrats have tried to quash it and have sued it. But the Supreme Court in Colorado did rule that it's a single subject bill. So it should make its way through title board this time pretty quickly. And we all know Michael. When Michael wants something on the ballot, it'll get on the ballot.
One more thing. I can't imagine why Phil Weiser wouldn't want a reminder on the ballot of how weak and soft Colorado is about crime. What else was on the ballot in 2022?
Oh, everything on the planet. Phil Weiser, for one.
And Phil Weiser, right. I mean, my guess is he did and by the way, it wasn't just his representative. He subbed out his representative. No one has ever seen this happen. He sent the Solicitor General to go in and kill this thing at the title board.
Yeah.
I mean,
we
they
don't
were
want
desperate.
people knowing that Colorado is high in crime,
right,
and that Phil is letting people out of jail early so that in a year while he's up for re-election.
Sure, I could talk about this with you all day. Here's the deal. What I want to know right before I cut you loose, and we're running a little bit long, is I know you're following some of the stuff going on with the Colorado GOP as well. Best guess on whether or not this attempt to have us pull out of the primary is going to be successful or not?
I think it's going to go down in flames, like it always goes down in flames. There is a small but very loud minority in the state of Colorado that wants to ruin things for the state GOP. It died in flames, the last time they tried it 2 years ago. Next Saturday, they're going to vote on one of the most ridiculous amendments ever brought forth, and that is to make all non-votes a yes vote, because they know they don't have the yes votes that they need to pass the opt-out in September. So now they want to make anybody who doesn't show up for the meeting or doesn't vote while they're at the meeting an automatic yes vote. Several county GOP parties, Weld County, Arapahoe County, Logan County, Morgan County, have come out in opposition, publicly come out in opposition to the amendment. They are scrambling like crazy. I think it fails again because I don't think they're going to get their amendment that they have to get in order to even come close to passing this opt-out movement. I think things go just as they've always gone, and it's, the handful of very loud, far right, obnoxious Republicans in the state of Colorado that are trying to get this passed through.
Well, there's no better way to tee up the callers that we already have on the line. Thank you, Sherrie Peif, Complete Colorado page 2. Go out there and check it out. It's all the stuff that nobody else in the mainstream Denver media wants to report on. If you want to know what's really going on, you got to check out Sherrie's work. Sherrie, thanks. We're going to talk to you, I think, in 3 weeks.
Yep. We'll see you then.
See you. Take care. Hey, listen, stick around. Artists, Frank, I promise we're going to get back to the calls. You guys have been so patient. I'm going to put you on as soon as we get back. If you want to join them, you give them a call at 303-696-1971. Some of the texts coming in as well. I think I'm on the Rumble. I'll have to check with Lewis. I think I'm on the Rumble and the YouTubes right now, which is too bad because I've gone nose a couple times during the show, kind of forgetting about what I was doing. Stick around. George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Love me some Stevie Nicks on a Monday morning, especially when the weather, I don't know if it knows what it wants to do today, but the thing that Billy gave me from our friends at Denver 7 has lightning bolts coming out of every single cloud on every single day. It's a high of 93 today, but PM storms. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, there's no sun. It's just clouds and lightning bolts with temperatures somewhere in that 85 to 84 degree thing. It was so weird this morning with the clouds. I know flying in on Southwest, because United, of course, couldn't figure out a way to get me home. We did this weird banking maneuver as a result of some of the low-hanging clouds. I come here and Billy's in a jacket, and I'm like, what is going on? And then Saturday and Sunday, 79, 75 more afternoon storms. I don't know if this is the future for Colorado, at least for the summer, but I can tell you this, it is way better than Phoenix, who has been hovering at about 200 degrees, I think Celsius or something like that for over a month. Hey, let's get to the phone line, 303-696-1971. Artis from Aurora, you have been so patient. Artis, what do you think?
Well, I'm not a computer savvy type person.
Same.
But it occurs to me.
Oh, Artis, are you not a phone savvy person? Did United hear the call and think you were going to go after United? Artis wasn't going to talk about United. United, if you're out there, or the Chinese, let Artis back on. Artis's line is open. I hope she fills it. 303-696-1971. We're going to go to Frank in the meantime. Frank from Evergreen, you're on 710. What do you think, Frank?
Hey, welcome back, George.
Hey, thanks, man.
So yeah, I am computer savvy, and I'm sorry to have to report, but our systems are so whacked, so bad post-COVID, and
which systems?
Post all of our systems,
like computer
basically.
Systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, systems applies to anything humans do. I mean, but so much of it is computerized, and it's more whacked than it's been in a long time. It's just going to take time to work through it. That's all I can tell you.
Why did COVID mess that up?
Well, all of a sudden you go from people coming to the office actually working every day to sitting home and working 10 minutes a day. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, it's going to have an effect. And I think not United, but the airline industry in general, they're saying is going to take 10 years to recover at this point. And it's just not the airlines. Every industry is reeling from COVID, and like look at restaurants. Like some restaurant chains, they've closed down a few of their stores, and they're trying to keep them ones that are profitable open, and they're going to probably gradually reopen others. It's just I'm sorry, but that's the way things work, and you have to deal with it.
Yeah, I guess I would say it in this way. I'm not sure that any of this was system stuff. Maybe the thing last night, but I'll give you an example.
No, when I say system, I'm not talking about just the computers. I'm talking about there's a system, there's process flows, there's
I get it, but man, the flight that I was gone Tuesday, I was supposed to be flying out of the country on Tuesday. I got as far as Houston and no further because in Colorado Springs, one of the superstars at United Airlines that is a flight attendant just no-showed, didn't show up, didn't call. They don't have any just hanging around doing nothing. It took them 3 hours to find a replacement. And during that 3 hours, I missed the only flight that would leave Houston to go to where I needed to go. That doesn't feel like a system failure. That feels like a person failure.
Sorry for your peril, George, but
it's not peril. It wasn't peril. Let's be clear. It just was a huge time suck.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I've got 250,000 Delta miles I refuse to even go anywhere with, but it's just, there's the bottom line is it's going to take time to recover. We were a highly productive society before COVID, and we hit the ditch, and now we're coming out of the ditch, and that's the best I can say. And I'm not a brilliant person. I think most people get that. I think you probably get that. But I mean, it's just, this is the way it is, and we're gonna have to deal with it for a few more years and keep moving forward.
Do you have thoughts, man, on this? And remind me again, I forgot, man. Remind me, Frank, if you're still a registered Republican.
No, I'm not. I dumped him after Bush Jr. went into Iraq on lies.
So you're a guy that benefits from the ability to weigh in on our primary choices currently. What are your thoughts on this vote coming up next week, August the 5th, that is going to seek to pull the Republican Party's decision-making back to a group of about 3,400?
Well, you already said it. Talk of another situation where it's going to take a decade or two to get back to normalcy. The Republican Party of Colorado, and maybe even broader than Colorado. It's the Republican Party of Colorado is hopeless at this point. And, you know, I mean, sorry, I'm a independent, what do you call it? Unaffiliated. But I'm a reliable Republican voter simply because the alternative is the Communist Party of America.
But you want a voice in that Republican primary.
Well, I'd like it, but it's not reality to think I'm ever going to get it. You know, it's not going to happen.
But you have a vote right now, man. The way the system's set up, you get to vote on who the primary winner is going to be.
Here's the thing I'm struggling with right now, George, and it's really the reason I called this morning. John was talking about it. Maybe it's not fair to refer to him now that he's gone, but he the first part of his statement segment, he was talking about how he was chastising people for not voting for energy candidates, energy politicians.
Yeah.
And then the second part is bad mouthing the one energy candidate politician we've had in 40 years, namely Trump. And I'm not saying bad mouthing as much as he couldn't find a single nice thing to say about the guy. I mean, you know, this is the problem. And that same problem persists in Colorado, where, you know, I mean, yeah, I get it. You know, Trump's, you know, he talks bad about women. He does this. He has, you know, hookers in Vegas, all that stuff, whatever. But did he never do anything good? I mean, come on, give me one.
I don't know that he's never done anything good, man. I just think that people right now, I'm included in this, I'm just so frustrated with what appears to be the inevitable choice between Biden and Trump. Like, we can't do better than that as a country. I mean, I feel like I'm being asked to make,
and you know what?
I feel like I'm being asked, man, to make a decision between like the guy in the neighborhood. I'm voting for HOA president, and my choices are the guy in the neighborhood who continues to drive drunk over my lawn, destroying my mailbox on a monthly basis, or the guy who has tried to set fire to my house and burn it down with my family on the inside. Like, I don't want either of these choices, right? Like,
yeah, well,
isn't there somebody better?
I mean, here's a solution for the drunk guy in your neighborhood. You know, get an M4 machine gun, mount it in your front porch, and next time he comes through, just blow the sucker away. You know, is there anything wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Laws and stuff. I don't know. We'll have to look into that.
I don't know.
Hey,
well, you know, I mean, a jury of your peers would never convict you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that any jury of my peers can be found, given some of my intellectual limitations. Frank,
but
thank you, buddy. I got to let you go.
All I'm asking is, can we say one thing nice about Trump every now and then?
He's not Joe Biden. Boom. Frank, thank you for the phone call, my man. I have to let you go because I want to cut away and come back and give time to Artis, who has come back on the phone. We've got a line open, 303-696-1971. We'll get to that one too, but Artis, you are up next. Stick around. George Brauchler on the George Show at 710 KNUS. Actually, a pretty cool documentary I saw on the flight. I didn't get to watch it about the Foo Fighters. I can't remember the name of it, but I want to go watch that thing. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Going to go right to the phone lines because it's Artis. Artis, you had just started by saying, I'm not super tech savvy, and then the phone went dead. Is everything all right?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I don't know. The tech savvy thing is obvious. I am a registered Republican. I like President Trump. I don't care what he did in the past. That's between him and God. However, if we do everything on the computers, why can't the Republican caucus do a Zoom meeting?
Artis, you're breaking up on us. We're losing you. Is there something?
Goodness, well, I don't.
Now you're back. You're back. Can you grab hold of whatever that electric wire is and just squeeze tight?
Yeah, I just wonder why the caucus can't do a Zoom type meeting for the people that can't get to Denver, Colorado.
You know, that's another great question too. Part of this is weird because they're going to do some paper ballot voting, which is interesting given sort of the concerns we have with mail-in voting. But there has to be a better way to do this because this one seems like it is ripe to disenfranchise. And the other part is this idea that we're going to negatively choose for people, or like if you don't show up, we're going to count your vote as in the affirmative. I can't think of another place in democracy where we do that, but I can think of some places in government where we do it and we hate it. For instance, you know how Polis and the legislature got together and decided, let's do this. Let's do a negative checkoff on your car registration so that every person in Colorado that goes and registers their vehicle has to pay for a park pass only a handful of them will ever use to get into state parks. But in doing that, they know your apathy is going to kick in. You're not going to know. You're not going to look for the checkoff. And you're going to end up subsidizing the handful of people that use Colorado's parks to lower their costs down to like $40 or something like that. That's not democracy. That's not the right way to govern. And yet here we are about to say this is the way we're going to decide whether or not to pull up the ladder on the primary.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I support Trump. I don't care what he did in the past. That is between him and God. But he was a tremendously good president in my own thinking. I think Kamala, whatever, was Biden's insurance policy because nobody wants her in the White House. So they will keep him in just because he's a lesser of two evils in my own personal Republican thought.
Well, Artis, I want you to have a say in the primary decision, not just on President Trump, but on all the other races that we have. No big statewide ones, but I want you to have a say in county commissioner, House, Senate, DA, sheriff. Well, sheriff won't be on the ballot this time, but you know what I mean? Like, I want you to have a say in all of those things without having to go through the arduous obstacle course of getting to an assembly. Artis, would you forgive me? I have got to go. You were so tremendous. Great listener, and thank you for calling back in. I'm sorry about the technology stuff. I can't go, though, until I tell you about our friend, Gay Ribble. Gay is part of a team called the Empower Home Team, and they're out there crushing it in terms of real estate. Here's the weird thing. We're talking about things like, are we going to have a recession? Maybe not. Amy Duncan from Alpine doesn't think so anymore. The soft landing thing is here. We've got this incredible employment, despite the fact that we keep jacking up the interest rates. Housing values continue to stay steady, if not increase. You don't have to navigate these waters by yourself. All you have to do is reach out to Gay Ribble and the team to get the best service possible with all the expertise available at 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. You can also go to gayhasthebuyers.com. Gay is spelled G-A-Y-E. Gayhasthebuyers.com. We love Gay. She be the best. If you want the best, you give her a call. Listen, that does it for the 8 o'clock hour. We're going to come back in the 9. Listen, there's a bunch of things to talk about. I love to talk about the Trump charges. I'd love to talk about the superseding and all that stuff, and I want to do it. But I gotta vent a little bit here, and I'm going to ask you to help me do it. Get teed up your worst airline experience here. We're going to talk about it next. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. Final hour of the show before we turn it over to that guy named Charlie Kirk from 10 to 11. We got Prager from 11 to 1. And then, of course, Seb Gorka from 1 to 3. Then we go live and local with Deb Flora. She travels a bunch. I wonder if she runs into any of this United nonsense. And then, of course, Stephen Tubbs, who is likely doing the show from some place near London. Seems like that guy loves that place and gets out. I should ask him too, his own airline experience. Maybe we'll call him at some point. But listen, what I can't do is ignore the fact that some of what we've talked about has generated some phone calls. And unlike the other options out there in your morning routine on the talk radio dial, you know that nobody really takes the calls or asks for them the way we do. So when people call in, I want to give them a chance to do this thing. 303-696-1971. Got one line open. Let's start with Janice from Walsenburg. Janice, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think?
Well, I was thinking about that sentencing guidelines when I fell. I was lucky because there was a little window there where we still only had to do half of our time for
Well, was it a nonviolent sentence?
second-degree murder.
That's not nonviolent. That sounds violent. Under this initiative, Janice, the person convicted of second-degree murder would have to serve 85% of their time. Now, right now, by statute, it says it's 75%, but that's totally fake, as you came to find out, because earned time could, good time, coloring book time, didn't shank my cellmate time, all that other stuff adds up to what you experienced, which is about 50% of your sentence. What do you think of that?
Well, I wasn't going to be eligible for parole under the new guidelines if I hadn't have served 75%, but I had come close to the 50%, so I was eligible for parole. And when they go to parole hearing, you get set back for 3 years. You don't automatically go next year. So that's what we were dealing with.
Well, I don't know that that's still accurate. When did you last get out of the system?
I left in 2018.
Okay, it could be like that, but look, they're transferring a lot of people out of DOC into halfway houses on their way toward, like ComCorp, on their way towards parole 18 months early, like 18 months before the end of their sentence. They're even doing that. So they add up all this time, Janice, and it makes for a sentence that isn't real. It wasn't real for you when you heard it. I'm sure you didn't think you'd get out at 50%. It's not real for the victims. It's not real for the community. I mean, nobody really knows how much you're going to spend. That doesn't strike you as unfair?
Well, I did serve 50%. So
I know 50%, but why should you have only served 50%?
Well, because they wouldn't let me out on parole.
I know, but why couldn't you have served 75%? Or as this initiative would
because the law didn't change until I was...
No, I totally understand that part of it. I'm asking you from a deserve standpoint. Do you think you deserved to get out in 50%?
Well, yeah.
Why?
But then in 2002, then they passed a law where you could be sued for all the charges that you incurred, and the people that whose person died, they did sue me and collect a bunch of money there too.
From how'd they get the money from you?
Well,
and by the way, I'm not sure they needed to change the law to allow you to be sued. You can always be sued for your wrongdoings.
Well, the state passed a law that said that there was interest accruing at 2% every year from the time they passed the law. So these people took advantage of that and sued me for it.
Interesting. Janice, thank you for the phone call. I appreciate you making it clear for me. It's great to have somebody who's been on the inside that knows how it works out. Janice's line is open, 303-696-1971. Going out to, I believe, one of the beautiful parts of the state, Durango. Jonathan, you're on 710. What do you think?
Hey, George. I had heard some comments. People were talking about Trump and couldn't quite find anything nice to say about him. And
who couldn't say anything nice about
him? I hear about that a little bit earlier. One of the people was bad-mouthing him, and the other guy asked, is there anything positive to say about him?
I don't know who's bad-mouthing him. I know Frank had called in, and I'm glad he did, to say, hey, listen, he thinks Trump's great. He wants to vote for Trump. And And he talked about other people not being able to find something good to say about him. And I said, well, first off, he ain't Joe Biden.
I kind of wonder what people really are desiring in a candidate that they don't see in Trump. Because with Trump, we had a border. Our fuel prices were half of what they are now. He was able to put on justices that gave us abortion laws that saved babies. And as a parent, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
He was able to back down North Korea, back down Putin. He was able to provide unemployment that went way down, historical lows for minorities. So those are all good things. And in a non-political sense, one of the things I like about Trump is he's going to say what's on his mind. You might not appreciate it, which is fair, but he's not going to let someone else dictate what comes out of his mouth.
I think that's undeniably true. But I also think that what's on his mind can change from moment to moment, day to day, week to week. I mean, he has said some really wacky things like, can't we inject, what was it, hydrogen peroxide or something, or Clorox into our veins to clean out the COVID? That's just bonkers. Other things he says, I get it, man. I think that's what's appealing to a lot of people is dudes just kind of, this is what you get, right? Like, this is what I think. And he's not trying to massage anything. And I appreciate that. But the parts about the good things, the question for me is it enough that he's done some good things as president that we just look past all those other things? I mean, I guess we're in a post-character matters universe in terms of politicians. And if that's true, okay. But that's sort of where we get with him. He brought us there as much as any of the others, Bill Clinton and the others. It's just like, my character doesn't matter. It's what I can do in office. It's very French.
I think in a perfect world, we would all do our own homework and it'd be issue-based. So if we wanted to talk about unemployment, it wouldn't be personality-based. It would be who's going to get the lowest unemployment numbers. Or if abortion was what we were passionate about, who's going to get me on the side of that I am interested in.
But you would not vote for the guy that could. But my guess is, Jonathan, you would not vote for a guy or gal who could bring us the best economy ever that we've ever had if you also knew that that person was a pedophile. And I don't mean to suggest Trump is. I'm saying there are limits to what you're willing to tolerate in a person's character. I just think that in the post-Clinton Trump world, we've lowered that bar so far, it's kind of hard to figure out what it takes to trip over it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, how do you fail to surpass that standard?
I think it's partially true, and some of the character flaws that do exist are also exaggerated and misreported as well. So the Trump that you could sit down and have dinner with today is not the Trump that you would have sat down and had dinner with 20 years ago.
Or last week.
Person that I was 20 years ago.
Because the dude shifts his views so quickly, and his version of reality changes depending upon what needs to happen. I mean, there's no better example of that than this classified document thing. Guy goes months trying to not turn these things over, never once claims that he had declassified them or that he had the power to do it. But then after he ends up getting charged, he says, well, I declassified them. You know what I mean? Like, it's just weird little things like that. Again, if I'm stuck in a place where I have to choose between Trump and Biden, I got to make the decision that I think is best for America on a bigger scale. And I just don't think it can be Joe Biden, who, by the way, I don't also find to be incredibly moral either. But I just wish we had better options. You know what I mean? Like, I just want us to come up with people that can do all the things that Trump did without having to have all of that horrible baggage with him.
People who don't have strings attached in the background, because I used to love Republicans, but as an institution, I don't feel like who they put on stage is going to be the same person 6 months after they're elected. The people that say they're going to stand up for what I want just won't follow through. And that's what excited me about Trump. The things that he said he would do, he did as much as he could. He hit brick walls in some instances, but he still put.
Is that a pun? Because he didn't get the wall built. And I know that was something that
he
a lot
got
of
part
people.
Of it built.
He got part of it built, and some of it was replacing the old wall and stuff like that. But remember, it was, I'm gonna get the wall built. and I'm going to have Mexico pay for it. And what I have heard since is this excuse machine that says, well, he didn't get it built because of the rhinos. And then it was, well, he didn't have Mexico pay for it directly, but in a roundabout way, they paid for it. And it's like, come on, man. The promise is a promise.
Agreed. Yeah. And those are things people should hold him accountable for, and other people too.
I think that first off, I think he's going to be the nominee. I think he's also going to be convicted of some felonies at the federal level. I hope he walks entirely on that ridiculous trumped up case, no pun intended, out of New York. I have no idea what Fani Willis is hoping to put together in Georgia, but I think we're going to end up doing a dance with a nominee who is either convicted or sentenced or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just feels to me like this thing is going to happen, and that the only chance for him to avoid being sentenced to some type of incarceration is to be elected president. Isn't that bonkers to say out loud?
That's terrible. And that kind of a system's got to be changed. We should be able to have honest people in there. We should be able to have justice at any level. It's a broken system, and that part of the whole equation stinks.
Can I ask you real quick before I let you go, Jonathan, because we got some other callers calling in too, and that is, do you think that the state party ought to withdraw from the primary system in exchange for an assembly-only system for nominating candidates to the ballot?
I'm not well enough informed to have a good opinion on that. More power that they put in the people, I would always support.
Boom.
The less power at the top is good.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want hands, as many hands as possible, casting those ballots, right, that are legitimate. I just want legitimate voters to have a say. I don't think our party is best represented when you cull the field down to 3,700 people. That might have worked in the past or something, but we don't have to do that now. I'm just interested to see how it plays out on Saturday, I think, of this upcoming week. We'll know more about it. Jonathan, great phone call, man. Thank you for that. 303-696-1971. Jonathan's line is open for your thoughts on this. I got to tell you, though, about a guy whose word you can take to the bank. His name is Dan Caplis. Dan Caplis has a law firm called the Dan Caplis Law Firm. And he's got a partner named Babar Waheed. I know him well because I tried Babar's very first civil trial case. Yes, we won. I suppose what I should probably say is Babar carried me across the goal line, but that would be a lie. It was his first trial, but he's gifted back then. I can't imagine what he's done 16 years of experience with Dan later. He probably blows me out of the water. But the two of these guys go around the metro area in the state of Colorado representing victims. They are the David to the insurance company's Goliath. If you're a trucking company and you've hurt someone, well, you should just hope against hope that those people don't hire Dan Caplis. If you're State Farm or Allstate or even USAA, and you're one of these companies and your driver has gone out and driven drunk or high or both and hurt or killed someone, you do not want that family to hire Dan Caplis, because David shows up with many, many smooth stones for a sling that will take them right off of their feet. You don't have to take my word for it. Dude's experience is performance. I mean, at one point it was 4 or 5 back-to-back multi-million-dollar outcomes for clients. One was the largest outcome against a trucking company ever in the state of Colorado. That doesn't happen by luck. I mean, that's just repeated success like that. It's just not luck. Give Dan a call at 303-770-5551. It's worth the conversation for you or anyone that you care about who's in that situation. You can also check him out at dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan Caplis, C-A-P-L-I-S, law.com, 303-770-5551. Listen, going to cut away for a break. When we come back, I've got to get this stuff off my chest because it's so fresh. Somebody texted in and said, wait a minute, you flew in this morning and then came right to the radio? Yes, that's true. And there's one airline to thank for my ability to be here today, and it's Southwest. And the funny thing is I hadn't bought any tickets on Southwest to be here until last night at about 8 o'clock at night because of United Airlines. Love to know your worst airline experience. Got a text here from our friend Joan. I'll read it during the break. You can call in, but listen to this first, because I want to tell you about where I was last week. At some point, I'll have to tell you where I was last week. But for right now, let's just all enjoy the fact that I served the country on behalf of the greater good, and I got screwed by United Airlines. Stick around. George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Going to go right back to the phone lines because we love us some callers, man. You call in, we are going to get you on. Larry from Aurora, you're on 710. Larry, what do you think?
Yes, I was just listening earlier this
sir.
morning, and the conversation, surrounding being tough on laws, and I'm 100% agreement with that. And if people did something or whatever, let's look at if the law is the law and the way it's written, let's throw away, the key and lock them up. But also, I get confused when I hear the callers, and then when I hear yourself also, George, say, if Trump come around and Trump is convicted, you say, it seems to me contradictory. I'm going to vote for him anyway.
Well, I haven't said if he's convicted, I'd vote for him. I haven't said that. What I've said is up to this point with these things pending there, I can bring myself to do it, but please don't put me in that position. Do you know what I mean? Like, please don't make me choose between Grandpa Biden and a convicted felon. I mean, dang, man, that's what it comes down to for America? Please don't put me in that position. What would you do there?
Well, see, again, I don't think Trump is putting you in that position. That's, that comes out every day for people, regardless of what. All I really care about is, that's why I can't get with the system sometimes, is because the system isn't blind. Justice isn't, justice isn't blind. Because all I look at, it still comes down to who has the money, who makes the rules. It's like we have a system of, okay, we say throw people away, but but where does this white collar crime stuff come from? Why don't these people go to jail for, 100 years? Because of what it looks like and how the system, is set up. So I'm willing to go there, but I would never go there because the reality is, like one caller said, I don't care what Trump did. Now, where did that come from? So is that law and order? So people are cherry picking and choosing who go down the toilet. And so that's where the system comes around and say, hey, you putting this person away for 50 years, but this person stole, $10,000 from the Girl Scout thing. This person stole a Snicker bar, but the person who took the $10,000 from the Girl Scout fund, they don't get nothing. So either you're going to do it or not. That's my point.
Man, I appreciate that. And it feels like you struggle a bit too with this same thing. I feel stuck, man. I feel stuck. There are other alternatives out there. I want to believe that they're going to make it across the finish line, but I don't think that. I'm watching Ron DeSantis on Fox News right now. I'd love for Ron to be an option. Dude's like 1 billion points behind Trump. Man, I just don't see him regaining ground. I don't know, man. Larry, thank you for
George,
the phone call.
George.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Trump was convicted. Trump was charged and convicted of groping and raping somebody.
No, that's not true. That's not true. He was not charged, nor was he convicted. He was accused in a civil suit of it, and that jury on a lower standard found him to be liable for that portion of it. I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but I'm saying the terminology here matters. He was not charged, nor was he convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. That matters.
Okay, so that doesn't go into the equation that he's always been surrounded. Again, he was president, and good for him and that whole thing. But what I'm talking about, just on the level, it's like if we're going to say law and order, let's do law and order and quit, half this and half that. And people are afraid to do it straight up. And because why? They're brothers and sisters and cousins and everything. They can get trapped in it. So that's my opinion, but I appreciate you, though.
I appreciate that, Larry. Thanks for the phone call, man. Larry's line is open at 303-696-1971. I should have asked Larry this. I'm sorry I cut you off, Larry, but I think the question I want to get to as we segue away from that into kind of this Waldo. Where is Waldo? I flew in here this morning from a place called Houston, Texas. That's a little bit of a tip as to where I might have been. I should have gotten in last night. That's what the military paid for. That's what I expected, but United had other plans. And so I ended up flying in from Houston this morning on Southwest. I just now received an email from the Clown Show customer service people at United saying, we don't provide reimbursement for the alternate transportation. Why not? I mean, if you had a relationship with Southwest, you would have gladly put me on that flight, but you said we don't have that relationship, so suck it. Instead, they want to offer me a $200 electronic travel certificate. What? To fly on United again? First off, $200 can't get you from Concourse B to Concourse C on United, let alone anything else. So sorry for the hours of time we've wasted and the fact that you had to get up at the crack of dawn to fly on another airline, apparently out of my own pocket, to make up for your garbage system that you have in place. Nonetheless, the question I wanted to ask, and I'll tell the rest of the story in a moment, because I'm venting here, folks. This is cathartic for me. Maybe it will be for you too, is where was I? Where on the planet Earth was I serving our country? I'll do the big reveal before the end of the show, no doubt about it. But if you want to text in, call in, you can let us know. Billy's got some trivia along the way here that will help lean you in that direction. But I had to fly in through Houston to get back home. That should give you some sense of it. I'll just quickly wipe some things off the board. It wasn't Canada. There you go. I've taken that away from you. So it should make it a little bit easier. But let me tell you the story of this. So there's an organization called the Defense Institute for International Legal Studies. I've mentioned them before. I'm working hard to get their former director, retired Captain Ian Wexler, on to talk more about their mission. But they do fantastic work across the planet Earth. One of the multiple missions that they have is to travel to countries, and not your, I don't want to say first world because that's the wrong term, not your big partner countries like Germany or France or Spain or Canada, nothing like that. We're talking about that next tier of partners and allies. And they, on a regular basis, provide something called human rights law training. And it's under a specific provision of a code that provides funding. We call it 333 training. Now, that training can be on an annual basis for a whole bunch of reasons, or it can be tied directly to the provision of military arms, armament training, personnel funding, or whatever to that host country. And Congress will bootstrap all of that with, hey, you need to also have human rights law training. And so there's this joint command that operates DILS out of Newport, Rhode Island at Naval Station Newport. It's where the Naval Justice School is. It's where the Naval War College is, kind of a big deal. And these folks travel around the planet doing these different trainings. I have been fortunate enough to be offered the opportunity to do several of them. And frankly, this is the hidden gem in the military. This is the best gig out there, in my opinion, especially if you're a single childless person, which I'm not, but it provides you a better opportunity. These folks are probably traveling around the planet on average 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. So, you know, you get a lot of young O3s there, captains in the Army or the Marine Corps, maybe Navy or Coast Guard lieutenants and all that stuff. Wonderful opportunity to do some great stuff. And so they'll travel to this host country, and in varying size groups, into different groups, they'll do these days, 3-day long, could be longer, but 3-day long presentations, very interactive, on human rights law training, Geneva Convention stuff, the law of armed conflict, the gender things. And I'm not talking about gender equality, not that, but I'm talking about the treatment within the services and outside the services, especially EPWs, prisoners of war, that kind of stuff. Have those conversations about gender discrimination. There's certain Geneva Conventions and other committees that we are not signatories to, but oddly, we continue to teach other countries about them. For instance, something called CEDAW, C-E-D-A-W, which is the Committee on Ending All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. That's a big deal. In fact, on the planet Earth, there are only a handful of countries that aren't parties to it. We're one of them. I mean, that's just nuts, right? There's other Geneva Convention parts, which you would like the additional Protocol 1, which doesn't mean anything to you unless you're a Geneva Convention law of armed conflict person, and you know that there are only 4 countries, I think, on the planet Earth that aren't parties to it. We're one. I mean, it's just the International Criminal Court. We send people out there to help that. We're not party to the International Criminal Court. It's just stuff like that. Okay. So we end up doing all this training all over. And I've had the opportunity over the last however many years to do it. I've gone to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, to help train their Navy, in part because they were going to be taking over certain things that we sent them, like maybe the Reaper drone, that kind of stuff. Then I've been to Vilnius, Lithuania, back before the troubles with Ukraine, by the way, which made it really, I mean, I was there right before that happened. And Vilnius, if you look at a map, Lithuania itself sits on a land bridge between Belarus and Russia. So they have a real heightened sense of, thank God we're part of NATO, and they get this training on a regular basis too. We've done it there. I went to Skopje, North Macedonia. Very different, much more Slavic than Lithuania was. And Lithuania is part of the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They are in descending order, north to south, also alphabetical in order. That's how you can remember them. So I've done that. And I've had opportunities to go to other places. I just haven't been able to pull the trigger because I've got a job like with you guys. And I have other things going on in the world with the family and all the other stuff. So like I have not gone to Poland. I've not gone to Tbilisi, Georgia, places I'd love to go to provide this training because you get exposed to the culture as well. Well, last week I was had the opportunity to put on orders, and I was sent out to some other place to provide this training with a Marine Corps captain, a Coast Guard lieutenant, and another Army lieutenant colonel. And we went and provided this training. And it required me to fly to get the cheapest flight. And that's what you do with the military, right? Like they have their defense travel system. You're not allowed to just be like, and I'd like first class on site. It doesn't work like that. You don't just get to pick your own flights. And frankly, you don't get to even use your own damn credit card. You have to use the military provided credit card for reasons that still escape me because I'd love to have the miles. Okay. But you end up going through this defense travel system. What I find out was the bestest, cheapest flight for everyone involved had me driving down to Colorado Springs and flying out of that regional airport, which, by the way, was really nice. I mean, for where I live in Douglas County, it's about 45 minutes to DIA. It's only an hour down to the Springs airport, especially in the wee hours of the morning. I didn't have any problem with that. I drive down there, easy to park, super cheap to do the short-term parking compared to DIA. DIA, you park there for a week, you're going to owe them a couple $100. Half that down in the Springs. I go in, it's super easy. I check in, I get my bag, and there's not a lot of people. This is so cool. Flight's going to take off. I've got about a 45-minute turnaround window to hit my connection in Houston, which is more than enough time to get off to the place I'm going to. And then all of a sudden, the guy comes on, the gate guy, super patient, super nice dude. This dude ought to be promoted, but his business, man, that United sucks. Anyway, announces, hey, folks, we're going to have a delay here. We have a flight attendant, we're short a flight attendant. They haven't called in, and they've just no-showed. And we are bound by the FAA to have a certain number of crew on board. Can't do it without them. There was a woman who was going to fly. It was like, oh, my God, and this gate guy knew her. And she's like, I could drive home, get my uniform, come back, but it's probably a couple-hour operation. He's like, no. We'll see what we can figure out. I'm like, couple hours? It took them 3+ hours to find a replacement flight attendant. That ain't weather driven. That's just someone who should lose their job. And so they're trying to reschedule all these things. It turns out there's no way, no airline that I could take from Houston to get to the place I was supposed to be boots on the ground by the next morning when we were first going to address these folks, this military. And so I got stuck flying from the Springs to Houston and having to spend the night in the Houston hotel. Now, you should know United has this voucher thing where they're like, oh, when you get on the ground, just go talk to the gate person. They can hook you up with the voucher. Easy peasy. So I land on the ground. I figured this will be easy peasy. I go to the gate person. They're like, yeah, you're going to have to go to customer service at C Cabillion. And I'm not in C. I'm in like B something. So I make my way over to see something to find what appears to be the line for bread in the former Soviet Union. You know what I mean? Like you can picture this line. Nobody's happy. It goes on forever. I call up the Mileage Plus people because I'm a Mileage Plus dude for, a couple decades. And they say, oh, yeah, we can't help you with that. You've got to do that on the ground with them. And I'm like, well, so I just wait here forever to hear what options are? I'm like, forget it. So I go, the only hotel in the Houston airport, IAH, George Bush International, is the Marriott. Well, that's cool, right? Because United and Marriott Bonvoy are partners. If you're premier with one, you're premier with the other, and there's just a lot of love involved. You can get extra points. I'm like, this is so awesome. It turns out United is not a partner with Marriott in that airport. They never, ever, never refer people to that airport because they have no relationship with the people with whom they have the relationship. So I'm like, oh, please don't tell me I'm going to swallow this thing. But I go and I get the room. The next morning, I get on the plane. It's delayed little bit, but I get to where I'm supposed to go. So I missed an entire day of training that I'm supposed to help provide. I do the next 2 days of training. I end up extending at this place because, of course, you want to take in the culture and you want to see stuff and all that other stuff. And I was deprived of that on Tuesday. So I stick around. I'm then on the flight back. This is yesterday. Hop on the plane. I think goody gumdrops. I'm going through Houston. Nothing bad can happen again, right? Plane's a little delayed. Not a big deal. I've got 1 hour and 45 minutes now to turn this bad boy around inside IAH. I feel like I'm well equipped to do this because I now know the lay of the land for the airport. Oh, I forgot something, by the way. I totally forgot. That first time, my bag is going to be trapped on the plane because they're going to try to route me to the other country on a flight that isn't until the next day. And I'm like, well, I'd love to have my bag now so I can do things like brush my teeth, take a shower, armpits, all that other stuff, maybe underwear to the extent that I don't go commando. Who knows? That in and of itself was a 2-hour ordeal. So you can picture here now, my life is being wasted, and it's not even on my dime, man. It's on Uncle Sam's dime. But it's frustrating. I finally get the bag. In fact, the people at United, when I said I'd like my bag back, they're like, well, most people just let it stay here until it gets on the plane with them the next day. And I'm like, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I'm going to go without my bag for however many. Just can you just please get my bag? Turns out that's a huge ordeal. So fast forward now, I'm flying back from this country, and people have been guessing in here. GB was in Germany. And they say, complete your DTS. Yes, I know. I got to complete the DTS. No, it wasn't Germany. It wasn't Germany this time. Someone said Cuba. Joan says Cuba. No, it's not Cuba. But thank you for guessing. You're certainly in that part of the world. So I'm in the air. We're a little late, but we're going to make up the time. We do make up the time because there's some weather stuff in the Gulf, but that's okay. Oh, by the way, the navigation system is out on the plane, so they make us skirt the coast. No problem. Dude hits the afterburners, and we're going to make it back on the exact time we were supposed to get there anyway. Yay! I've got 1 hour and like 10 minutes to get to this gate, which is in a completely other concourse because I'm flying in on E, which is international. So we land, and I'm like, hey, everybody's getting their stuff ready, all this other stuff. He's like, hey, we're taxiing. There's a plane currently in our gate. We're going to have to wait for a few minutes. No big deal. I start to hear things like, oh, the LAX and the Orange County people, please let them get off the plane first because their flight's going to leave in about 20 or 30 minutes. They need to rush to. Okay, no big deal. 20 or 30 minutes goes by, and and the captain comes on. He goes, hey, listen, folks, I can't explain it, but on our way over to our gate, another plane just cut in front of us and got to the gate ahead of us. And I'm like, is that a thing? Is that what United does? They jockey, they're fighting. I said, just let us out here. I'll run across the tarmac. This is stupid. And so now I'm like, okay, now I've got like 45 minutes left. Every 10 minutes, dude comes on. He goes, folks, I can't believe what I'm telling you here, but I can't get anybody to respond to me at the tower or at the airport. He said, I can hear a bunch of people talking over each other. Nobody will take my call. I'm like, what? And people are starting to like laugh a little bit, but it laugh frustrating. He comes back on in 10 minutes. He goes, hey, folks, I think we found another gate. It's on the north side of the airport. We're going to have to go around. Now I'm down to about 25 minutes. We stop. Dude comes back on. And he says, folks, you cannot make this stuff up. But on our way around the airport, I've got to get ground clearance. Apparently, there's another plane in our path whose tire popped, and it now has to be pulled off of the tarmac. And everybody's like a combination of WTF, laughter. Some people just, I'll never fly United ever again. Oh my God, like traffic on 25, but it's planes, it's planes. And finally, we're making our way around. The gate is in sight. And he says, folks, we're going to be delayed just a bit further while they try to find the people to make the little thing come out and get to the plane. I'm like, can we please just get off the GD plane? Now there's nobody happy now. And meanwhile, they're like, hey, good news, folks, for you folks that were flying to LAX or SNA, which is Orange County. Those flights have been delayed also. So in part because of this flight, just haul butt, get to your gates. So I'm like, so I look on the app. My little Colorado Springs bound Houston flight, it's on time. It's already boarding. I'm going to have 10 minutes to make it before 8:25 when it's destined to leave. So I'm getting off the plane. I tell the nice flight attendant lady, I ask her, I'm like, can you please ask them to wait? I have this other flight. And she's just like, you're just going to have to go to your gate. And I'm like, that's horrible advice. But I do it and I run. It's like a PT test run. Only this is a weird run where I'm looking for the Skyway thing. If you've ever been to Houston International, I have to wait. I get on the little tram thing. It's like light rail, but it's like our little trains, but different. I get off. I sprint. I'm going to make it. I sprint to the cul-de-sac of gates where this one is nestled. And I'm out of breath. And the woman can see me running. And she's like, which flight are you trying to get to? And I can look down at my watch. It's 8:23. They're not going to depart for 2 minutes. I go, Colorado Springs, Colorado Springs. And she goes, oh, you're too late. And I'm like, there's no way I'm too late. I can see the plane. The thing's still attached. She's like, well, they've closed the flight, sir. And I'm like, unclose the flight. Open the flight. I mean, you're the reason I sprinted here. I have a ticket. Let me on the damn plane. And they're like, I'm so sorry. They're like, the one woman turns to the other. Can you give them a call and see? And the other woman goes, they're not answering the phone. So I guess that's it. And I'm like, that's not it. I'm 2 minutes away. They're like, well, please stand in line here to talk with the customer service person about this thing. And I'm like, you have got to be that wording me. You know what I mean? So I'm completely out of breath. And I am on the verge of becoming a huge customer service ass because I can't take it. So now the woman that's up there is like, well, sir, I can rebook you tomorrow, but the flight leaves at 9 something and you're going to have to connect there. I says, please stop talking because you have already exceeded what I can tolerate. There is no, I'm leaving at 9 something. I got a radio show from 6 to 10. What's the earliest flight you can get me in on? And she's like, well, it's going to be routing you through. I'm like, you're killing me here. What time would I get to Colorado? She goes, in the 11 to 12 o'clock hour. I'm like, nope, try again. I'm on my phone. I said, look, here's a flight from Southwest, leaves at 5 a.m., gets in at like 6:30. I can at least make it for the rest of the show. She says, oh, Southwest. She goes, yeah, we don't play with Southwest. I'm like, that's not my damn fault, man. I'm like, you put me in this position. This is the hat trick of failures. This is the third one in a month. Phoenix, Colorado Springs, and now Houston. I'm like, please fix this. She's like, sir, are you refusing the connecting flight? I said, I am. I want a refund. I'm like, it ain't even my money. It's the taxpayers' money. I'm going to have to go out of pocket to fly Southwest. So I'm like, I need a place to stay. And that's when she's like, here are 3 lovely hotels to choose from. They are all 10 miles away and there is no shuttle service. And I'm like, ma'am, I'm telling you, I'm getting a ticket on Southwest for a 5 o'clock flight. I would have to get here in the 3 o'clock-ish hour to make sure my bags make it. And I'm going to cross my fingers and hope there's an Uber driver who's trolling around the 10-mile away Regency, whatever it is, Suck It, Sleep Fest there to get in here. And she's like, well, sir, we've never had a relationship with the Marriott here at the airport. I said, it's impossible because you have a relationship with Marriott. It's the whole thing. And I can see the woman next to me who's at line in the place next to me. And she's like, looking at me like, that guy's really out of control. And she goes, I'm just here to check to make sure that the flight to Aspen is still on for tonight. And the woman looks at her and goes, oh, no, we had to move that flight till tomorrow. And she goes, what? She goes, yeah. She goes, so I have to spend the night here in Houston? And I just look at her smiling like, uh-huh. Yep, that's right. You and me, sister. Thank you, United Suckfest. And so now I got this email for this thing that doesn't tell you where I was. And in the seconds left as we cut away for this break, I promise you I'm going to reveal it to you because it's going to change the amount of pity you feel for me. Keep the guesses coming. George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Folks, we've just eclipsed all the time in the world. I can't get to any of the phone calls. Some people have guessed El Salvador. No. Panama, interesting, but no. Costa Rica, no. British Virgin Islands, perhaps the closest of them all. Yes, folks, last week I was serving our country by helping others be greater. It was a place that rhymes with Yamamas. It was the Bahamas. We'll be back tomorrow. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.